Okay, we are back with another Between the Pages book chat. And this week, our guest is sci-fi and fantasy author Ben Green, who's here to talk about his book, Forged in the Fallout, book one of the Rimduum series. And I'm going to
Got
turn
it.
it over to him now and let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Yeah, I'm Ben Green. This is my first publication, Forged in the Fallout, Rimduum Book One. It's kind of a fantasy adventure, definitely YA coming of age feelings. It's essentially magic and adventure deep under the Rocky Mountains and artificial suns and nuclear magic and neon lights. So it was a blast to write. It's my first big release, but book two is already done. Book three is halfway done, and I'm just having a blast writing it. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I also teach social studies by day, and at an alternative school for students that need credit recovery or absence problems. But that's another part of my life. But it definitely influences my writing toward the YA audience, and I love that aspect of what I do, to just really be around youth a lot. And the book is a lot of fun. The main character's name is Clayson Spangler, and he lives in the Appalachians with his dad until, of course, he discovers that he's not from around there originally, and he gets pulled back into the world of his father's world of the kingdom of Rimduum under the Rocky Mountains. So it's pretty exciting read. I've had a lot of good feedback and reviews lately, so I'm pretty positive about that.
Okay, so what inspired you to write the book, or your reasons behind it?
Well, I think I've written a lot of fantasy. I that like kind of got my feet wet in like historical time travel fantasy with a hint of magic around like the American Revolution. And I'm a social studies teacher. I really like trying to understand societies and how things are set up, and economies and stuff like that. And that plays a little bit of a part. But I think what ended up happening is I was reading book after book of like, what if elves were modern day? And I was like, well, what if dwarfs were modern day and they were featured as the main kind of group? That's what led me to write, like to kind of theorize, well, they would live deeper under the mountains, maybe because they craft so many cool things, they would have like way higher technology, right? Maybe they would have had the internet in like 1200 AD or something, right? So I just kind of extrapolated dwarfs out into the modern day and came up with the idea of the kingdom of Rimduum. And then all kinds of things started snowballing from there. My idea for my unique idea for dungeons and the magic system, and for just different forms of craft and metal magic that they would use. And so just kind of snowballed. And I started getting really good feedback from beta readers and other people that, wow, this is good. They really enjoyed it. And so I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I need to publish. And so it's kind of gone from there. So,
okay. So tell us a little bit about the magic system. I'm kind of interested in what exactly nuclear magic is. It sounds
yes. So the magic system is called craft. Totally appropriate for dwarves who live under the Rocky Mountains, right? And they create metal objects, right? And so some people compared it to like allumancy with Brandon Sanderson's allumancy, but I believe they kind of like ingest metals, and there's some other stuff going on that. This is like they craft certain things, they follow the recipe, and there's like different metals do different things. So there's a point in one of the early chapters where someone has kind of like gold magic, gold craft, and this person's blood is used to like transform this person's face to give them a new identity for the moment, so they don't get caught in this situation. And so there's just all kinds of interesting things. There's 10 different kinds of craft. But the really cool part, like you were mentioning, is nuclear magic. That's where the dystopia part of this book comes in, because the world underneath the Rockies has all been destroyed except for 2 cities. So there's these cities filled with magical fallout, right? So let's say you combine Mithrium, the name of the nuclear magic, nuclear metal, with let's say tincraft, that's like the power to control plants. Well, if you have a nuclear plant explosion, right, then those plants just kind of take over the city, potentially, killing everyone just like a nuclear blast. And then people don't go back to that city for hundreds of years, because there's the half-life of the magic and all that kind of stuff. So that's essentially it. So, and that's part of the plot, because my main character, his dad knows the location of these pieces of nuclear magic, and his dad is the one who hid them. And the fear is that they'll come out again, and there's only 2 cities left, and what can be done to stop the heading all the way to total self-destruction of the species. So that's what's kind of cool about it, is trying to keep that all under wraps. And his dad's character is a secret keeper anyway, which can be really frustrating. He's not like the antagonist, or he's not like the enemy, the villain of the book, but he's certainly an antagonist in that he holds so many secrets. So,
well, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about the main character. What's he like?
Clayson is he's lived in the Appalachians his whole life. Since he was a child. He has a close relationship with his father. He went to school for a little while, but then his father started getting mysteriously ill. So he's been taking care of his dad for a few years when the book starts, kind of like a homeschool situation. He's not necessarily a lonely kid, but just isolated. But he's very helpful of his father, but he also watches tons of travel documentaries and imagines, like kind of traveling the world. He's a news junkie. So that drives a lot of the plot. He really wants to know more about everything, which is great in a first book, because you can kind of discover the world along with him. So it's not like you're thrown right in there and it's confusing. I just had that comment from somebody today that I asked him about the magic system and everything else, and they said, you did it so well that and I got pieces, and Clayson's character was so interesting that I just kind of went along with it and wasn't confused by a big magic system and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, Clayson is a news junkie, good-hearted kind of son, a good son. He learns that his mother has kind of magically forgot him. And that's part of the plot as well, which is pretty cool. And something he has to kind of work through and resolve. But he's a fun character. And the side characters provide a lot of extra energy and keep the pace moving pretty quick.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about some of the side characters. Are they a little quirky, a little plain, or they steal scenes, or what?
Yeah, they're not quite scene stealers, because it's a first person, but they do certainly come in and they're noticeable. His sister that he doesn't know is kind of a princess type. She also just knows people really well. The kind of people who know exactly what gift to get everybody and seem to be in touch with everybody. That's his sister, right? So she has all the connections, and she'll show up at weird times where you're like, how did you know to be here? Well, so-and-so, she just seems to know everything and know everyone. So she's a cool character. The other kind of main side character is his friend Rugnus. And Rugnus is kind of the champion of the new style of this newest city, right? So there's 2 cities. One is a monarchy, and the other one is direct democracy, no leaders, voting on everything, magical enforcement, a smidge of vigilantism, right? So Rugnus is like the poster child for this direct democracy. And so Rugnus and his sister kind of don't see eye to eye because she's like the benevolent, good-hearted ruler of the monarch of potential ruler, future ruler of the monarchy, and Rugnus is poster child of democracy. And he like his style is interesting. I really love his style. He's just like wears very neutral colors, but with one bright flash of something, right? Whether it's like hot pink lapels, something neon, a yellow bowler hat, whatever it's always something, right? It's always something. And I love his feel of like urbanism and like connection with the people, and his belief system is really strong. So that's cool. And the way that I came up with a lot of side characters is I thought about, well, what type of magic do they use? What type of craft do they use? How does that inform who they are? Does craft make you who you are, or does who you are influence what type of magic you would use, right? And so I have like a girl who's like a mechanic type, who is she's like the grumpy, the grump of the group, and just a great fun character to write. And then of course there's the one other character I love to write. He's like the comic relief. Anything about sports or dungeons, which dungeon and sport for them are very similar. So sports, dungeons. He asks everyone, well, what's your highest craft, and like this, and he'll watch all like he's like just kind of a aficionado of the world. And so that's cool because he'll ask Clayson questions that Clayson in no way knows the answer to, and could totally reveal him as not being from around there. And so that's pretty fun. So
yeah, he's the know-it-all of the group, is he?
Yeah. You could ask him any statistic about any of the known dungeons under the world and their champions and what kind of objects you can find in there, and he'll know. And his life goal is to become a professional dungeon raider, which is like the NFL, for dwarves, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the hardest scene or type of scene that you wrote in the book?
Oh, that's a good question. Hardest scene or type of scene I've written in a book. Yeah, I immediately think of book 2, but I'm trying to think of something from book 1.
Well, you can tell us book 2 too. I mean, we are talking about the series, so.
Yeah. Well, book 2 is going to be out in February. It's already away to my editor, so I think there's some just like heart-wrenching stuff. It's like, oh no, I cannot believe this, right? Stuff that I expected, but then like just a random side character will connect with this event. And you're like, and it's like, oh no, that we didn't even think about that aspect of this terrible event that happens in book 2. And so some of those were pretty hard to, I don't know if it's hard to write, but just like emotionally draining a little bit to write, like where it's like, that is really sad. Can we just move on? Right. Or just try to find something to like, what else happens this? I would say I write kind of triumphant, happily ever after stuff, but of course bad things happen to characters, and they should, right? Because this is how you provide depth of character. In book 1, there's a moment with one of his parents that's fantastic, and I love that moment. It was hard to write the scene, but after a number of things, it turned out really good. And all my beta readers are like, oh, this is perfect. Every single one of them, I swear, they stop at that moment and like, this is perfect. And I'm like, yes, I got it. But I'm really glad that I'm not still writing that scene, because that was a tough one.
Okay. So what was your favorite scene to write in the book?
Favorite scene to write. There is a moment where they go to a, essentially like it's like the Olympics and a job fair had a baby, right? So it's like they go to this job fair thing, or they go to this, it's called the keeper's social, right? Or the keeper's banquet. People call it different things. And you're trying to impress people, high ranking people and people who like own the dungeons to get jobs or to, because it's a YA book. The characters that interact in my YA book are all like 14, 15-ish, but in Loman terms, that's like the name of my dwarfs. In Loman terms, that's almost an adult. They're ready to go out. They're finding jobs. They're looking for internships. There's not really school. There's more like mentorships and just workplace like kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting. So they're all looking to find their place in the world. So they go to this social, and my main character's goal is to like unravel some secrets, but Rugnus doesn't know that, and Rugnus is trying to keep him safe and secluded because of a promise he made to his father. So Rugnus is trying to keep him safe, and he's trying to get closer to this person who's really dangerous and figure out some clues about the plot in the book. But just all the little challenges they do, because that's how the social is set up. You can earn points and like win challenges. So they actually sit down at this giant like man-eating plant, and they have to like kind of figure out how to get around it, or how to copy the same magic that the really experienced person is doing. Because if they can copy that magic, then they're like, oh, okay, you are really good at this. Maybe I offer you a job. I'll send you it over the, Blue Link, which is like the internet for dwarfs, right? So they're trying to get this job, and they sit down to like face off against this man-eating plant. And one of the characters like really has like sympathy for the plant, which is like a good moment. And everyone's else like, why do you care about this plant? And he's really connected to plants, and he's like, I think everyone's making it feel bad. We need to do this, and that was a really fun to writing that social and all the weird little magic, and having them trying to copy like the pros was fun to write. And everyone, when they get to that part in the book, the plot really starts to thicken, and everything kind of starts breaking down and moving people forward quickly. So I've had a lot of good compliments on that scene too, and it was fun to write.
Okay, so what are your characters afraid of?
What's that?
What are your characters afraid of?
Oh, that's a good question. Andalyn, who is Clayson's sister, Andalyn's afraid that the monarchy is going to crumble. It's already kind of a shell of what it was. And she's not necessarily in charge. There's a council, and they've got like massive borders keeping people in, kind of like a Cold War situation, right? And then so she's afraid that that's going to crumble, that people will not value what a good monarch does, right? I think Clayson is afraid that he's going to that he's being too rash, that he's going to mess something up. He's also kind of afraid that he's not going to see his father, or his mother's not going to remember him, that even in this new place, he's going to have to live under an alias. And, his life in the Appalachians trained him to be kind of a at-home, like, participant in a family, a son, caretaker. And he enjoys being like close with his family. So if he never gets that again, or if his dad's always going to be on the run and his mom never remembers who he is, so that's kind of his internal struggle. I think that's Coghlan probably fears that he will not live a life of glory and notoriety in the dungeons and through power and craft. He's the guy who's the geek about all things Rimduum, all things dungeon and magic and power. He wants to be looked at as someone, looked at the society level, like as someone who is awesome, right? And he wants to be known, and he's afraid that he will die unknown. So that's just a few of the things. I think
Okay.
his father, the good one more is that his father is afraid that all his secrets will come out, and that by so doing, like the last two cities under the Rocky Mountains will be destroyed, and everything and life for them will be nothing like it ever was before. So,
Okay. So obviously you write fantasy and that sort
yeah.
of genre. Are there any other genres you'd like to explore in future?
I've written some sci-fi. I like that. I also spent probably a good 100,000 words writing a Arthurian comedy. Right. So this is like um, the main premise of this is that the kid comes back from having a magical quest. He tries to tell people, but they don't believe him. And so he takes to YouTube to try to clear the air and put all of his haters on blast, right? So it's actually pretty funny. I've gotten really good comments from beta readers on that one, and that's completed. But the format is weird. It's a weird format. It's like it starts off with a YouTube introduction, and then it's like a transcript of a YouTube video, and then at the end of each episode, instead of chapter, it's like the top comments. Like people are like, fake, this is fake. And like, oh yeah, we're going to kick you off of the blue table at lunch. And he's like, so he's losing all the popularity that he had by telling people what happened. And so he's kind of fighting back against that. So I like the idea of doing some kind of comedy in the future. Because I'm kind of tapped into the like young adults anyway, and I kind of I think that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could,
Comedy can be fun. So
yeah.
I wrote a fairy tale book that's fairy tale noir,
Oh, that
and
sounds fun.
yeah, it's a lot of comedy in that. That was a fun one to write.
Yeah.
Anyway, and it's a weird format, much like yours. In between each story, there's little news bites.
Oh, cool. I like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a classic frame story, but told through YouTube transcripts. That's basically how I could describe it.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you
Sure.
tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Yeah, you can visit my website at Loam Seed Press. You can find me at Facebook, Ben Green Writes. And my book is in pre-order right now. It comes out July 27th. I have an online event on July 29th. Anyone's welcome to come to that online event. You can find it through my Facebook page. And I'm going to be actually doing a book signing and talking to people face to face during that online event. I have a host, so I can kind of push that over to them and spend some time with anyone who shows up. So yeah, come find me. I'm on TikTok at author Ben Green, Instagram at Be Digital Green, and I can find the YouTube video of this after the fact, put some of those links in. But join my newsletter, get a free story, The Girl in Bear Cloak Dungeon, which is set in the world of Rimduum. Free story, people are really enjoying, and that's about it. Thank you for having me today. This has really been an enjoyable interview.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And I have put a few of your links in the description
Okay,
to your
great.
book and your website. And there was one more, but I can't remember what it was. So I'm sure the viewers can find it, though. So anyway, well, thank you for being here. And we'll be back tomorrow with another author. So join us then. Bye for now.